your feet hurt, you can't really do anything.
Yeah.
You know, if you're
Like having a flat tire.
if you're not used to walking through like a parking lot that has like some rocks and stuff on it, you know, then how you gonna walk? You're gonna walk like you're very old, right?
Yeah.
You're gonna
Yeah.
walk very carefully.
Yeah.
If you're used to it, obviously you can deal with the pain in your feet.
That's quite an interesting thing. You know, if you're walking through that parking lot with a big cushioned shoe on, your brain is like noticing that there's a rough surface. You might be able to, like, there's so many things telling you, all your senses are telling you that there's a rough surface, but your feet, which is a huge sense, is like going, can't feel anything. Your brain's like, what the hell's going on here?
Yeah.
Like, I'm meant to be feeling this stuff and I'm not feeling it. And so this is confusing for the brain for sure. Yeah. And then when you take your shoes off, your brain's like, oh, I'm not meant to be feeling this. You know, so,
Yeah, your brain gets into panic.
Yeah,
even
it's
on
a
a
shock.
surface that's flat without
Yeah.
any pebbles, you know?
Yeah.
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 Yeah, that's a big reason why, like, there's so much you can do on flat ground, and we never really tell people that you have to have like tools necessarily, but just the simple thing of having something that's a bit dense and not flat ground, because everything's so artificially flat and level, and just having something like that just supplements basically like the roots and rocks and logs and stuff that you would get in bare feet in nature. But yeah, that's like big part of the idea is just getting stimulus into the feet, so you can give that one a go. All your weight on your back side, have one foot back, and then you just slowly add body weight
Oh, I see.
in. So as much of your body weight as you can tolerate as you push forward along, and just like search for the spots. Interesting to see.
That feels good.
Yeah. So that's a good sign that your feet have some level of resilience. Most people go like, oh, that, you know, it's like a bit too much. And you can angle like your knee a little bit in or out. Usually in, you'll find a few more.
Yeah, I felt that,
Yeah. Your feet should be adapting to the ground, like a mobile adapter. And so all those joints, it's like 33 joints in the foot. They need to adapt to the ground and then change shape again when you're pushing off. But most people end up with so much stiffness in their feet that they can't really adapt to that pressure, which is a big reason why it's so tender when they do that.
Some runners end up with like the little shark fin thing back here on the heel.
Yeah.
What are some things that people can do for that? I think Eric has a little bit of that.
I've got a little one.
Yeah.
It's called a Haglund's deformity. Nearly all shoes have got quite a stiff heel counter. And so if there's anything that's like creating any twist or anything, you're banging against that heel counter over and over again, and bone just reacts.
That is true. The back of the heel on a shoe is very stiff. It's cupped, right?
Yeah. And so the more we, like if there's a block at the midfoot or the big toe joint, knee, hip, anything that stops us getting off nice and straight, we'll have a little twist as we go off and run into that back bit there. And so bone reacts to load, and it's just adding more bone there. And so some people never have an issue with it. Others need to have it shaved off, which is a massive surgery to have. Like,
Crazy that your body's just like, yeah, let's put more bone there.
Yeah, if you're creating, like if I just kept tapping my hand here for like every step that I did
Calcium
for
deposit
years and
just
years and
form
years,
there.
I'd end up with a little bone there, you know. So
It's interesting though, it's the same kind of thing with bone spurs, like when there's extra load in an area that otherwise wouldn't be there, then yeah, the body lays down extra bone. But it's not necessarily, a lot of people are like, oh, I've got these spurs in my feet, so that's why I have pain. But there's actually a lot of people who have the spurs with no pain. Most people, yeah. And same with those Haglund deformities, even bunions. Like the deformities don't look nice, and they're probably not necessarily ideal, but it doesn't necessarily mean that
there's dysfunction or pain or
well,
symptoms.
There's some reason for it, and whether you call that dysfunction, but it's not necessarily painful. It doesn't have to be painful, and so, it's case by case.
I saw today they have the Major League Baseball here in America.
Yeah.
All the teams are complaining because they have really shitty uniforms, and they're made by Nike, and the uniforms are like literally falling apart. And they're stiff, and they're not attractive. Like you could see like the sweat on everybody. See their like butt sweat and everything. And so they're making a big deal of it. And I'm like, they should make a bigger deal about their shoes.
Yeah.
That's what this expose should be on, is how shitty the shoes are that they make that are confining everybody's feet. I mean, it's just, I don't know, it's nuts.
So there's more and more brands, because it's very early days in like the sort of barefoot, sort of minimalist,
Just like a soccer,
world.
kind of a soccer
Yeah,
shoe.
cleat.
Yeah. That's super cool.
Yeah.
I know Nsima will really like this a lot because he played soccer for many years. So.
Yeah.
Well, that's feeling really good.
Yeah. So that's like the mini roller. You can also use that to get into calves. It does a really good job of getting into calves. But then the
Just a quick question here.
Yeah.
So, I run into a lot of people that, have plantar fasciitis. I hear like so much about it, and usually, from my experience, it's been like upstream, downstream. I usually find, and it could be even higher upstream. I mean, it could be like coming from the hips, like the origin of some of these things that we develop. Who the hell knows exactly where it comes from? But I've found a lot of relief for myself and for a lot of other people, kind of through the shins. Obviously the foot is like, someone's like, my foot hurts, but sometimes you can get a lot of relief from the shin. So what have you guys seen to be really effective for something like plantar fasciitis?
It's very individual, like you said. Some people, it's like the issue's more coming up from hips or trunk. Some people, it is just an issue in like the big toe, for example. Most people have dysfunctions just because of the...
Some people are like, I don't know what's wrong with my feet, but they're killing me, and they walk around like this all the time. And you're like, well, I think like that's a weird gait,
Yeah. As a general rule, they're overloading the plantar fascia in some way, and that's either because they've just done too much too soon of a certain activity, like you can overload anything that way, but also just the distribution of loads between the areas. So if your hip's not functioning the way it should, then the foot ankle complex is having to take on more of the load, and it's like
very similar to back pain and so on, right?
Yeah,
I mean, if you stand in some strange position all day, then of course you're going to have probably some symptoms, and it could be coming from your feet, could be coming from your hips, right?
Yeah, so if you're, likewise, if your foot isn't absorbing force from the ground well because it doesn't have the strength and mobility it needs, then you can have pain in the knee or the back or whatever, and it's actually an issue at the foot. So yeah, it goes both ways. So yeah, as a general rule, you just focus on, load management as a whole. So are you just doing too much for the body? Scale that back.
Is that where you guys usually start?
It's usually best to
kind of
start
look at
with
the way someone walks, maybe, or something like that. Or?
Yep. Yeah. So technique is a form of load management and just overall volume, training volume. Some people just have to dial back how much they're doing to allow things to calm down.
Right.
And then you build back up the capacity in the foot, and then also you're looking up the chain to see where else needs to improve capacity as well.
Traditionally, they've been, we just look at the foot. I'm a podiatrist, so I understand where the profession is pushing, they're putting in orthotics, cortisone injections, shockwave therapy. None of, you didn't get plantar fasciitis because you didn't have an orthotic or shockwave therapy or cortisone. Mostly you got
Our ancestors were like, need that shockwave therapy, right?
right.
Just waiting for that new shot to come out.
Mostly you got it because you, the big three factors would be weak feet, weak calves, or someone overweight, and maybe the fourth factor would be, like Jim's saying, load management issue, like doing too much too soon. Because you could have strong feet, strong calves, not be overweight, and just run too much, and you'll end up with, that could be the thing that breaks down first. And so, in my approach, or our approach, is to find out where there's maybe like a mobility issue or a strength issue and address that rather than, and we need to calm it down first, because you need to be able to manage the pain. But generally, as soon as you've educated someone that it's going to be okay, that it's going to get better, and if we just work on it slowly but surely. If you look at the research, after 12 months, no matter what you've done, it's pretty much better. So I call a lot of the stuff...
It's like, it must have been the Advil or the ibuprofen.
Right. That's it. Or if they have a cortisone injection, next time that happens, I better go and have that cortisone injection.
Right.
So if you can educate someone that it's going to get better, and if you
it's the most disappointing research of all time.
If you
the only thing that helps is time. We already know that, right?
Funnily that, maybe you're just doing something in the meantime that's just making up time, especially when you go and see a health professional. They are expected to do something, and so they do something, and then it's going to get better anyway. But stuff can help it happen quicker, and the way I look at it is, if you found that you had a mobility issue in your big toe or a weakness in your calf, then if you work on that, maybe it won't happen again. Let's work on the things that maybe it was a positive that it happened.
Right.
And then at least it's something done by you rather than something done to you. That's where people get caught up, is like they just constantly need something done to them to make them feel better rather than actively doing it themselves.
And they feel good about that. They said, I went to the podiatrist because my foot hurt.
And
and then he gave me this, and I'm going to try to follow, putting the orthotics in or whatever someone might recommend.
Yeah.
And then they're really, in the end, they're no better off. It's maybe a bridge the gap type thing.
Yeah, potentially worse off, because then the next time they have something pop up, then they feel like they have to go and see someone to give them another thing to fix their pain. Whereas, if you just started off with the functional approach of like, how do we improve the function of this area, the pain's probably going to get better anyway.
Yeah. How I got down the rabbit hole of the whole shoe thing was, Well, years ago, I helped design a shoe with Kelly's Tourette. I made a shoe with Reebok. This is like 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And we made a powerlifting shoe where the shoe was wider. And that was more like, I just recognized powerlifters are big. A lot of powerlifters are big and fat. And so their feet are big and fat.
Yeah.
And I was like, these guys need wider shoes. And as I was kind of exploring that, I was like, oh, no one's shoes fit. As I kind of looked around, I'm like, this guy, this guy, this guy. And they're not overweight at all.
Yeah.
And their foot was like, if this was a shoe right here, if this is the line of the shoe, their foot was pressed out like that beyond the side of the shoe. And I'm like, wow, that doesn't make any sense.
Can't unsee that, can you?
Right. And then I got more active. I used to be over 300 pounds. And I got more active, moving more, trying to lose some weight. And as I started to walk more, my feet started to really bother me. So I just kept trying to get into different like dad shoes, like wide dad shoes. But those didn't fit either.
Yeah.
Like they were wider, but they still weren't like foot shaped. They were still shoe shaped. And so I had to go to a podiatrist every like 4 or 5 months and have them kind of like shave down. Like, I don't even know what it was, a callus, a corn,
Callus
or I don't
and corns,
something. It hurt like crazy. I mean, it hurt. It was like debilitating pain sometimes. I would be on a walk and then all of a sudden it would just like thrive and just cause a lot of pain and irritation. And so I had to get that kind of scraped off each time. And I kind of saw what they were doing. And they told me, like, you can just buy a tool and you can do this yourself if you really wanted to. So I started to do a little bit of that, but I'm like, I just need to find the right shoe, I think, and I'll be fine. And so I tried to find like sandals, and I think I had a pair of sandals that were like a little bit like that.
Yeah.
Shama sandals.
And trying to wear stuff more like that for a little while, and my foot started to grow. Then I had an even bigger problem because my foot grew like a whole half size.
Yeah.
And then I was trying to find like wider shoes, and then eventually some people started to make some wider shoes, and that whole like market started to really take off. So I have like the Ultra shoes, and I got Vivo barefoot and the Shama sandals and all the different stuff now.
Yeah, I mean, even the wide traditional shoes are wide at the base of the toes, not at the tips. And so they almost fool your foot into thinking, oh, I've got some space, and then around the toes, which is no good. But yeah, you would have just had some corns and callus. And I would say that...
I can't believe how bad that hurt.
Yeah, podiatrists would be out of a job, or there'd be far less of them, if we all just wore foot-shaped shoes. If people just wore foot-shaped... Like, shoes are why podiatrists exist, pretty much.
Right.
Conventional shoes.
Maybe podiatrists invented the shoes that
Well,
we're
podiatrists advocate for those shoes.
Yeah.
It's a
That's
nice
true.
little
Yeah.
merry-go-round. Yeah. And all the...
And some of them are well-meaning, they just don't know better, probably too, right?
I think so too, unless you start questioning
They're
what
not
you're taught.
they're
They're
not
not evil.
No.
They're not evil. They're just doing what they're taught. And, still
They're
go
not
back.
like-
Yeah, that's right. Like, I'll see someone that's got 8 pairs because they got an orthotic for, say, plantar fasciitis. And then, a year later, they have another problem. They go to another podiatrist. And they're like, oh, those orthotics are no good, so here's another pair. And then that happens like 8 times. And then I see them, and the orthotics are pretty much all doing the same thing, but they're not actually addressing the cause. Just do something that promotes the natural way their foot's meant to work, rather than trying to add something to the equation all the time. Yeah.
The thing is, with the traditional model of healthcare in general, including podiatry, it's just more of a short-term, symptom-focused, like someone's come in with pain, how do we just immediately manage the symptoms as best we can, as opposed to a more long-term function thing. So that, like we said before, it just keeps them in that cycle of, they make the symptoms better, but then something else pops up because they've never addressed the function of the body.
Health is a business, unfortunately, and they've got KPIs that they need to get their clients coming back regularly. And I would rather see it as like you're successful as a health practitioner if you can empower someone to look after themselves. Yeah.
Yeah, which is essentially what we want to do with all our education and tools and stuff, is just give people the skills that they need to just like improve over time by themselves. The tool kind of becomes the teacher. How are the feet feeling after all that?
It feels
you're
good.
Getting all of the angles.
I love doing this stuff. Yeah, it's addicting because I think kind of mobility stuff is addicting too.
Yeah.
I think that's why you see so many people so obsessed with it. Now, once you get into it, and once you kind of get past that little, barrier of not wanting to do stuff like that, then you're like, that just makes me feel good. And it gets to the point where that makes you feel so much better. And if you don't do it, you kind of feel like you're paying the price, And I think that's like a little mental thing probably here and there. But yeah, I'm really addicted to a lot of this stuff. I love doing it.
So yeah, the Soulmate, you got that domed surface, which makes it a lot harder to balance on. So then if you're doing that in single leg stance, you might want something to help progress you there, like a dowel or a wall. But you can also just go these progressions of balance training where, so this would be a lot easier obviously because you've just got 2 feet together. We would start someone who's like 70 or 80 on this, so it's like accessible to them. But then you could slide, for you, I think you'd definitely be ready for this position, like a split stance. So then just bring the heel of your back foot up and your toes go into extension. So then most of your weight's on that front foot, and then just look up, face forward.
Second time my eyes come up, it's funny, my head's always down.
Yeah.
It's also straight away you roll on the outside of your back foot, so just get that big toe down.
Yeah, so
Yeah, like
bringing
really
that.
bring it. So you're getting some mobility in that big toe at the
Yeah.
same time.
Yeah.
Should I like almost stretch the big toe like that?
Yeah,
Or is that a little
bring
excessive?
that heel back in this direction. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Oh, I see.
It's
Yeah.
still up, but yeah, stretch it. Yeah, that's
I
it.
see.
Yeah.
Like flex the calf a little bit.
Yeah, yeah.
I see what you're
Cool.
saying.
Yeah.
And then look
Almost
straight.
like push into the big toe a little bit.
Yeah. So there you've got that happy medium between, you're not needing to touch a wall or anything, but you're still getting these wobbles in the foot and ankle.
Yeah, automatically without
Yeah.
even doing anything.
Yeah, yeah. So that's your foot trying to adapt to that domed surface.
I'm just
And-
trying to make it look difficult.
Yeah. So then,
No, that's great. I mean, so if someone, obviously it depends on the skill level, but if somebody's just standing here for, what, 2 minutes or so, it's like that's pretty good training, then flip to the other side.
Yeah.
yeah, that's a good place to
Because
start.
I feel my toes squeezing pretty
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, yeah. And actually try and relax the, yeah. There we go.
Let them go. Long flat toes.
Yeah.
Say that a
So
lot.
ideally you want to be able to relax your toes, especially in these kind of
Right.
positions. There'll be another stance.
Yeah, the
that I'll
more
show
you
where
relax, the more you balance.
Yeah, yeah,
Just like make the most of all those joints in your foot.
yeah. And there's another stance we'll show you where you kind of do want to grip with the toes. But yeah, for this one, nice and relaxed toes like that. And so we might as well get you. So
Yeah.
standing there obviously is a good way to just start, but then it gets a bit boring for people. So having a task that also challenges like visual system,
Yeah,
vestibular system,
absolutely.
because that's part of your balance. So just hold that hacky and just keep your eyes on the hacky the
Whoa.
whole time, throwing side to side. Yeah,
And so it becomes play-based, which is
Yeah.
fun.
yeah.
Well, this is, my hips are very tight. My hips and my back are just, they've been very like stiff and tight for a pretty long time. And so
Yeah,
I
there we
can,
go.
it's like
Change sides.
a little bit of a, when I do stuff like this, it makes it easier for me to be off balance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I don't have like a ton of, especially internal rotation on this side. It's just not great.
You'll be impressed though how quickly, a lot of it's nervous system based. So bring that heel of the back foot up. Yeah. So this is like your nervous system tuning in to the stability demands.
Probably even
and
helps
then
your
the task.
eyesight, I bet.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so that eye tracking is a really important part of our function because we don't want to be able to just stand and balance with our eyes down or our eyes in fixing on one spot. We want to be able to, especially athletically, we want to be able to focus on other things happening, moving our head, moving our eyes while we're maintaining stability.
Focusing on different spots probably here and there
Yeah,
too, huh?
yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's just the definition of adaptability, really. So if you can stand perfectly still like this and balance, but you can't move your head or eyes or change position and get back into it, then it's a problem.
I just thought of this thing, you know, so when you're running, there's a lot about posture and there'll be like where to look when you're running.
Yeah.
But if you think of, say, an animal running, like a dog, and it's chasing a frisbee, it's like its technique is perfect and its head's just like, you know, it
Yeah.
can do all these things while this is all still happening.
Well, yeah,
That's how we're meant to be able to
The way we evolved.
scan with our body still doing its thing.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, evolutionarily, we'd never just be running
Yeah.
with a fixed
Yeah.
gaze. We'd be
Right.
scanning the
Scanning,
environment,
yeah,
looking
seeing
for
everything,
prey,
yeah.
looking for predators.
Yeah. Not to
Looking
stand on a
for,
big
not
rock.
to- yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I try to look around a lot when I run, especially like I like to look up sometimes, like just at the trees and stuff like
Yeah.
that, just to kind of enjoy the view. But I try to change my, you know, like I might stare at something that's maybe, you know, a couple meters ahead, and I
Yeah.
might stare at something that's, you know, 100 meters ahead or
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just to demo, so we went from that's like a split stance. If you go all the way in, that's a tandem stance. So just give that a go, and
You
just
do
to
it.
see how much more
Like
challenging.
walking a tightrope.
Yeah, exact same thing, but lift that back heel up, and you can see how much more wobbles you're getting.
Whoa.
And if that's too much, maybe back it
Yeah,
off a bit.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's right. I want to let him struggle. And then look up.
I like stuff like this. It works you way harder than you think, you know? Like there's
Yeah.
nothing really like, nothing really strenuous about this, but I think things like this are cool, especially, what's up, Nsima?
Hey.
Hey.
What's up, guys?
G'day.
So yeah, just that tiny change in position can make a massive difference to the difficulty. So then scalability wise, you might go from there to halfway to all the way, or like any variation of that basically.
I think there's a really good point that you brought up is to like, you could very easily do this in between stuff. I
Yeah.
know sometimes like my audience, sometimes they're like, what are you doing? Like, just get back to lifting, man. But this is like easy enough to do in between your sets.
Yeah.
Because I think it's important for people to try to add, you know, maybe some of the younger guys, maybe they don't care as much, but I think it's important for people to try to add aspects of athleticism and other types of movement rather than just kind of like banging on the weights, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good active recovery because like you said, it's very small movements, very low load. But also if you think about stability, like there's actually a book called Balance is Power. And so
yeah.
if you think about trying to do a lift, a squat or a deadlift and you're on a one of those foam cushions versus flat ground, you're going to lift more on the flat ground because there's more stability. So
Yeah.
if your foot has more stability, then you're going to be able to unlock more power.
Or how hard is it to run fast in like soft sand or
Yeah.
something,
Right,
right?
yeah.
You're just
Yeah.
pushing down to the ground so
Yeah.
much.
Because
And
there's
when,
a lack
and when
of
we're running
stability.
well, where at every step is a single leg balance, and so it's the same theory, really.
Yeah.
It's amazing how much your eyes are involved in this whole process.
Yeah.
I think there's some famous story about a guy that walked a plank on a really high building.
Yeah.
You know, the building's like 100 stories high or something like that. And then everyone was amazed. And then he took the plank and he showed everybody, and the plank was, you know, as wide as this sandbag.
Yeah.
And he put it on the ground and he had people walk across it. And everyone's like, oh, no problem. And then he put it up 10 feet.
Yeah.
And everyone was like, you know,
Yeah.
super wobbly, even though there was plenty of space for you to walk casually across it.
Yeah.
But just because of how high up he was,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and there's no railings
Yeah.
or anything, it was like, holy
Yeah.
shit.
Yeah, there's a concept in this book called Flow. Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, I believe, and he talks about the flow channel being between boredom and anxiety. So if it's way too easy, it's just boring. No one really cares to like do it. But then if it's
Oh, I
like
like
10
that.
feet tall, then you start to get anxious, and then you can't actually focus
What did you say?
on
It's between what?
between boredom and anxiety is
Oh.
the flow channel
Yeah.
he talks about. And he's like, you know, the people who spend the most amount of time in flow, whether it's in physical flow, mental flow, meditation, or in their work, they are the happiest people in the world, regardless of like socioeconomic status or anything like that. But this is why we do this kind of training, because it's a way to practice. You can scale the difficulty very easily from like whether it's a young kid or a 80-year-old woman or an athlete, then you can scale it, but it's all low stakes, so very low risk of injury. You're not going to fall and hurt yourself, but you can create a lot of adaptation in terms of foot and ankle stability, hip stability, and you're obviously having to focus pretty hard to stay on.
Yeah, it's interesting like how much harder it was with my left foot forward versus my
Yeah.
right.
And it'll expose those kinds of asymmetries. Yeah. So then you could go to single leg stance, which actually is a bit easier than this tandem stance because you have this leg free.
The
So that helps, gives you a little bit of balance. But then the other stance I was talking about is ninja stance, we call it, which is just your forefoot on top of the soulmate and your toes gripping over like that.
Oh, nice.
And so that's just a whole different balance strategy. So it's more anterior-posterior, forward and back, instead of side to side. So give it a go. It's generally the harder stance.
So you were
So go 4 foot right on the top of the soulmate, so like that.
Go a bit wider.
Yeah. You could have 1 foot on this one, 1 foot
Oh,
on that
I
one.
see.
Yeah. Got big wide feet.
yeah. Bless you.
So then that is usually a lot harder than most people are ready for. So if you do the same thing, but it's now split, more your forefoot, yeah, there we go.
Kind of like this.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, grip with your toes with this one. Yeah.
Good stuff.
Almost like home equipment type stuff.
Yeah.
Nail it, Nsima.
Oh.
These are great.
Well, the natural tendency of the body is to, when it feels unstable, it's like starts to stiffen up. But you actually just have to relax into it and breathe and just be fluid.
Absolutely.
And then you sort of can start to move like a bit of a dance. It's way easier when there's music, but we can put music behind the video.
Well, I'll get some music if you want. Here we go. The cool thing about this is like for people who can't articulate their toes to use and grab, like what you're just talking about with this.
Yeah.
Most people can't like use their toes to grab and maintain balance. Like when you see people do handstands, there's a lot of finger, you know, like they put pressure in one way, they move in one direction, the other way. But a lot of people can't do that with their feet.
Yeah.
It's like when balancing on this, if I move my weight this way, move my weight this
Feels
way,
really good too.
there's a shift happening,
Yeah.
or a natural shift happening.
Yeah. And so in this kind of stance, let's say you're like jumping onto a rock and you need to save yourself, then you do want that toes gripping. But then in a single leg stance, you actually want to be able to maintain that stability without the toes gripping. Kind of like once you get good enough at handstands, once you get the alignment right, you don't actually need as much of the finger flexion.
Yeah.
It just sort of maintains with a low amount. And like when people first start doing handstands, they're squeezing their glutes tight. They're trying to keep everything really tight. But then at a certain point, you can actually relax into the handstand and just hold that alignment.
Try and let those long toes go.
Yeah.
Long flat toes.
So let these guys relax.
Yeah.
Why? Curious.
They're it's more they're ready to react or do something rather than just be holding on the whole time. We just want our foot to be nice and relaxed. And so the better you get at balance, the more relaxed things can just be like
I see what you're saying.
A nice little state rather than just like, it's not going to last long.
They're more reactionary if I think about just letting them chill out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they can react when they need to.
Yeah. Oh, dude, good fucking cue. That makes so much sense.
So long flat toes, I would say that 100 times a day in the foot. Long flat toes.
Because most people are in that habit of contracting their toes like that all the time, and partly it's because their foot isn't stable enough and their hip isn't stable enough. But then that means they're overusing those muscles all the time when they walk, because every step is basically like a single leg balance on a small scale. And so if you're constantly activating those muscles while you walk, it can lead to overuse issues.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're able to relax them, the balance is like the training of like, okay, how can I generate stability without clawing my toes?
Yeah.
And the small muscles of the foot create this long flat toe. They're the stability muscles, like the small muscles around the hip or the shoulder, create stability, and then the long ones can be like a spring for like accepting energy from the ground, releasing energy. So if the long ones are just doing this all the time, then they can't do that spring thing. That's when you get overuse stuff at the Achilles, around the ankle. So we want the long ones to be relaxed, ready to be springy, and the short ones to be doing the stability work, and that's a long flat toe.
Getting the hang of it, Mark. I was watching that.
Yeah, squatting down kind of helped.
Yeah.
Lowering your center of gravity. Yeah.
And if you were really struggling to let go of those toes in this stance with tandem, then you'd probably just go a bit wider, and then that immediately makes the balance easier.
Oh yeah, it does.
Yeah, just tiny little change in that width. But you'd be fine with that. But let's say if you got someone who's
it does
very
make a
poor
difference,
balance, you
though.
just widen it out.
Yeah, that does make a really big difference.
We almost need a bigger soulmate for you.
Yeah.
There was this, and then there was this. So surfing stance or fencing stance is one forward like that, one forward out. And then that you're getting a little bit of both of those balance strategies. And then you could be down here.
Shit. Yeah, it's funny, when I squatted years ago,
Oh shit.
when I was standing up, felt terrible.
Try that out.
But squatting down felt good. So I'd stand up with a heavy weight, my whole body would go,
Yeah, right.
and I'd start to squat, and then I'd control it better.
Huh.
Yeah, it was wacky.
There you go.
Hey.
Yo, this is gonna be, dude. This is such a sick little tool.
So yeah, one of our favorite things is a compass reach. So depending on how you go with single leg stance, you might need to use a dowel, but you just grab it with the foot, you reach as far forward as you can into north,
Cool.
and then
Put it down.
put it down, hook it back up.
Now you made it real hard for yourself.
Yeah. Now you got to get it. And then you go out to east afterwards. And then south. So you just go in the cardinal directions. You could do a full clock face, but that ends up getting pretty tiring.
West is pretty challenging on your right leg.
Yeah. All the way around the back.
Oh, that looks kind of neat. Get it behind you.
Yeah. Like the start of a dragon squat.
Yeah.
You want the down one?
Dragon's lair. Whoa.
Yeah.
Yeah, that might help.
There we go. That's why I can cheat. Use that as the balance while I grab it.
You're only cheating yourself.
Yes.
It's also good just to show that you can do the compass reach either in tandem or split stance or in single leg stance, but you can do it placing the hacky with your hand instead. So same kind of thing. I'd try it in tandem just for that bit of extra. So you'd go.
Is tandem's
Tandem's like that.
easier?
Yeah. No, it's harder.
Really?
Just because you don't have this leg to balance.
Oh yeah. Okay. I see what you mean.
You
Yeah.
can bring up your back heel.
Yeah, bring that heel up. So then go placing out to east with your right as far as you can. You can do this in split stance too, yeah. And then you got to pick that up with your left.
With my left?
Yeah, like that.
Bruh.
Like this.
Okay. But still. Come on.
There we go. You got it. Nice.
And now let's put it over here and then grab it with my right.
Now put it, yep, exactly.
Yo, what,
Yeah.
bro?
You getting it?
I'm not gonna reach out with my right. That's too far.
Give it a go.
You guys ever just tied these to your feet?
Yeah, but the other way around. See?
Yeah.
So it's these kinds of drills, while it's sort of fairly predictable in terms of you're putting it north, putting it east, south, west, it starts to get you in positions that you probably otherwise wouldn't get in and have to stabilize in. So it's fun
reaching
that way,
gives
but
you
it's
a goal.
also like athletically very applicable. Like we've just been catching up with some of the performance staff at the Warriors and 49ers and just taking them through some of this stuff, because the only way that you can get repetitions of getting in funky positions is either through playing the sport or through something like this where it's much lower stakes and you just sort of figure it out. And then your body learns how to stabilize in weird positions before it gets into the position in sport.
There's a shoe video I'm doing, but like, if you think of the Nike trainers and those types of shoes and how they have that toe lift, you wonder how the hell would someone even use any of their foot muscles when there's a toe lift and a narrow box. It's like, you're not using your feet to balance, you know?
Exactly. Toe spring.
Yeah.
And which is why I think we end up really crunched up here a bit as well, because this all gets so tight because it's just constantly in a position like this.
Yeah.
Constantly lifted up. Nearly every conventional shoe has toe spring built into it. In fact, when a minimalist shoemaker goes to build a shoe, they go to a normal shoe factory and they're like, but there's no toe spring.
Yeah.
And we need a heel and we need this. And the minimalist shoe people have to retrain how someone builds a shoe, because it's just traditionally done to have a heel a heel counter, and toe spring.
It's a negative cycle because the shoe is trying to do more of the job of the foot, which makes the foot less able to do the job of the shoe, which means it kind of, quote unquote, needs more of the shoe to do it.
Yeah.
So you have to break the cycle somewhere. But the reason they put heels and cushions on running shoes was because everyone was running in flat, sort of more minimalist shoes originally.
This is
and
like
they were
50
getting
years ago.
plantar issues, Achilles issues, and they realized it was because everyone was wearing their high heels and their dress shoes to work, to the office, and then they were going out for a run, but they didn't have the capacity in their feet and ankles to tolerate the run. So they, instead of improving the feet and ankles, they said, oh, let's put a heel in so that they don't have to do that. And then the load goes to the knee or the back.
Well, some of it too is like jogging. It's like a made up movement and it's done a particular way. There's like a book written on jogging and it's like one of the Nike founders, and you're supposed to heel strike when you do it. So people say like, you're not supposed to heel strike when you jog. It's actually incorrect. You're supposed to heel strike when you jog, but jogging was made up. It's a made up movement.
The actual strike is probably not as important as like where you stride.
How far ahead.
How far ahead.
I think that guy was basically just trying to teach your average person how to start going on like a 2 or 3 mile run.
And
very gentle, slow. It's not meant to be fast or not meant to like jump at all, you know? Very low to
And
the
the
ground.
faster you go, the more to the forefoot you go in terms of stride.
The more that you have to, right?
it's true. Walking and slow jogging should be most usually a heel strike. Your heel is designed to take that load. But that's my issue with saying it should be one or the other, because when you start accelerating, you'll come onto your toes. When you decelerate, you'll go back onto your heels. I watched the World Cross Country. They came out to Australia for the World Cross Country Championships last year, and the most elite runners were running down a very steep hill, all heel striking, because it would be crazy to be up on your forefoot. You'd fall over.
So you need your you need your brakes.
So good posture in the rest of the body relates to what your foot should be doing, and your foot just should be along for the ride, really.
And your foot should just be resilient enough to take both heel strike and forefoot strike, depending on the context that it's in.
But the thing is like the intensity of the heel strike for most of the population is way too intense.
Well, exactly,
Especially when you've been wearing a heeled cushion shoe your whole life. So
Then
you
they're just
learn to
used
be
to
in
that.
this position, and then you put on a minimalist shoe, and it's a bit of a training tool in itself, because it hurts like hell to do that.
It's jarring.
If you ran barefoot out here on the concrete, you will not heel strike.
There's no way.
I'll give you one more Nsima with the Hacky.
And then we'll
You
play
can try
some
this
games.
too, Mark, if you want. You might want to dowel. But we basically developed a system of how to learn to hacky sack. You'll like it because you're a soccer player, hey?
Yeah.
I
always sucked with hacky sacks though.
Oh, well, you'll get addicted to both of these then.
Okay.
But we like to combine it with the soulmate. You don't necessarily have to do it on the soulmate, but it is a good combo. So you're picking, and then you're going grabs. So you get obviously all that active hip mobility. The taller you are with the trunk, the more your hip does. So that's the high knee grab. You got the straight knee grab, the outside getting into internal rotation, and then the inside getting into external rotation.
Do that. Oh shit. Woo! Look at that mobility.
So then you have to keep, the other thing with that one is you want to keep the foot basically parallel to the ground, because eventually we end up going for like a kick like that.
That's not happening on that side at least.
So then you'd go, those are all the picks, and then you'd go flicks in the same pattern. So high knee, straight knee, outside, inside. We'll start there and then we'll get into kicks. Yeah, so then, like Mark's doing, you can always...
It like runs away from
That
me.
one's not going to happen. I already know the one to
Which
the
one,
outside.
the internal?
Internal rotation.
Yeah.
Nope. I'll do that.
You got great external rotation.
Straight up, this way.
Yeah, straight up that way. Now to grab it out there?
Yeah.
Yep.
Boyo. Whew, okay, I didn't think that was going to happen. And then you did behind you?
Yeah, you can do behind.
There's a bit of extension. Yeah.
Oh, my hamstring.
Or around here to the other side.
Where'd it go?
It's
Oh, it's
behind
back
you.
there. Okay, let's see if I can stay on and just grab that bitch.
Yeah, nice. You got the mindset already.
Come to daddy, come to daddy.
Floor is
come
lava.
To daddy, come to daddy, come to daddy, come to daddy.
Floor is lava.
Come to daddy. There you go, motherfucker. All right.
Try the other side.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I jinxed him.
Was it this side or this? Oh, it's this side, yeah. I already feel that.
Oh, you got that side.
It was dirty, but we cheated and got it. Internal. So actually, what we're supposed to do with that? We're
The
supposed
next
to.
one is flick.
So yeah, flick.
Flick it, just
So flick
throw it
up
up and
and
catch it in
catch.
the
Oh,
same
okay.
five positions. So it's a bit of
Let's start with the right
coordination.
foot.
There you
Nice.
go. Yeah, good. So it's having control of that grip.
Let's do that again.
My wife does shit like this all the time. She picks stuff up off the ground all the time.
Yeah.
Let's do that
Because she
again.
can't be bothered bending down.
She's just like,
Yeah.
There
Nice.
we go.
she's a swimmer, so she's always using her toes.
Yeah.
There you go.
That's the next step. Pick, flick, kick. Boom, boom, boom.
Let's do that again.